In case you didn't hear, we built a bus and we've officially been living in it for 2 months.
This is a quick video to update how everything we built functions in real-world conditions and things we've had to change.
Everything I've got, nobody would want. They knew the cost. It has taken years of selfish, lonely fears to find I'm lost, I'm lost.
We left New York on January 6th, which means we were doing our build over the winter, and we were more than ready to get to the desert and get warm. So we drove pretty much straight to Sedona. I think we only stopped to sleep. And once we got there, those first few days of living in our bus were the best, because it's this build that we've been dreaming of and struggling for, and we finally got to use all of these things that we built into our bus. And those first few days were just really exciting because everything was brand new.
First couple days and weeks, honestly, I had no clue where anything was. I felt like I had to learn where everything was stored and how everything worked in the bus. Even though we built it, I was like in somebody else's house. It was pretty strange.
Getting the bus out west and having an opportunity to test all of the things that we installed in real world conditions by just living our lives was really fun, because we worked through our build so quickly that we didn't get an opportunity to do any of those things. So it was just figuring out little life things like our morning routine and how to turn on the heated floors in the morning, how quickly our sink gray water tank fills up, where we like to sit and work while we're in the bus. Figuring out all those little things is really what our first few days consisted of.
Yeah, up until that point, it's just really theory of how things are going to work. And even being well versed in those theories, you have to put them into real world practice. Particularly things like your solar system. When you're in New York in the winter, there's just clouds and gray. And even the sun being out is such a short time period. So it was really exciting to get back out to Arizona and see what kind of yields we were getting from all the panels that we put up there.
It was great to get the bus out into that desert sunshine and see the full potential of our power system. As we've mentioned before, we lived in our last van for 4 years, so a lot of our first days and weeks and months in our new bus is not really discovering bus life or life on the road. We just kind of settled back into the life that we were living. We returned to a lot of our really favorite camp spots and BLM areas. We've been hiking and backpacking. Infamously, we got to see the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, that was great, obviously.
So we've done a few things and just settled back into that lifestyle that we really love.
It's been nice being back with this bus as opposed to the van and having a little more just capacity of water and power and food storage to be able to stay out a bit longer.
What was your favorite part?
That business we started at Lake Mead, the Mouse Hotel. Small business, very small for mice. So what I did is I put a little mouse hotel up in the dash. I put a sign out, and I had to pop that no vacancy sign on very quickly. It was very popular.
We had an unreasonable amount of mice
Like
in
1,000.
our bus. No, not 1,000.
Okay.
Unreasonable is more than 2.
More than one, really. Any.
And not all at once. They weren't like attacking us.
No.
Not all at once.
Yeah, so we had a mouse in the house. Well, not in the house. It was up in the dash. Put the trap out, caught it, released him, and then he came back again.
The first night we caught 3 mice. I thought that Drew wasn't walking the trap far enough away from the bus and the mouse was just coming back. I thought we caught the same mouse 3 times.
No, I don't think so.
Which is
Maybe.
worse. There's more?
Either way, it wasn't good.
So they weren't in the house, they weren't in our bed or anything. They were fully in the cab. And we figured out that they were coming in through the dash. We must have been parked over top of some mouse nest. So once we moved our camp spot, then we didn't have any more mice. But we did have to move because we spent 3 nights of just catching mice, and that was way too much for me. We walked you through the steps of our bus build in the 4-part series that we did, and now we want to give you an update on the things that worked out really well, things that we loved, and give you a little bit of a progress report on some of the things that we installed. The first thing we want to talk about is our countertops. These are 1.5 inch thick butcher block, and we cut them to size, and I sealed them with water locks. And water locks is a really cool product because it completely encases the wood and makes it waterproof. So we're really hard on everything in our kitchen, and the countertop in our last van ended up really not looking so great. So this is what our countertop looked like when we installed it. And this is what it looks like now. I think it looks really good. I think it's holding up great. It doesn't have any signs of wear. It's only been 2 months, but we have cooked, we've baked, we've done a lot of dishes in those 2 months, and we've been pretty hard on it, and it's still looking great.
A huge upgrade in this bus over our van was the storage, and now that we've actually moved in, we're able to see how well it worked out. We moved all of our clothes in, our kitchen stuff, and the biggest thing was taking all of our outdoor things that were previously in a box on a hitch carrier and in a bag on our roof, and we could put those under our bed. It's a big compartment. It's been great, and overall it's worked out really well. We got the struts to hold up the bed, so it's easy to get in and out of there, and we're pretty happy with it, and I think that's been a big upgrade.
Organization is key in something this small, or anything smaller. Everything has to have a place, and in this bus, finally, all of our things have a designated place, and it allows us to stay more organized and keep everything tidy. Some people were concerned about the wall that we decided to tile in our shower and how that works with tiling a wall in a moving vehicle that rattles and vibrates and shakes, and people asked for a progress report on that to see if any of the tiles had fallen off of the wall, and I'm happy to report all the tiles are still in place. None of them have fallen off, which is really great for us. We don't have to redo it. I used Hydroban, which is a lightweight cement board alternative, and that's what's behind the tile. I think that allows a little bit more movement with any vibration from the vehicle. So then you just red guard on top of the Hydroban, and then I did the mortar. I did use a flex mortar. I didn't put any other additives in it, and so far the mortar and the grout have held up really well.
When it came to our fridge and freezer, we really liked the idea of concealing them beneath the countertops. And so far, they've worked out great. The slides have held up.
It's a really great storage option opposed to having a really tall stacking refrigerator and freezer that would have cut into our space.
Yeah, it keeps all your sight lines clean and open, and everything's concealed. It just looks really nice. I have a bit of concern about when it gets really hot, if the freezer is going to get too warm in that compartment. But that remains to be seen. So far, it's functioning great. If I need to add more ventilation at that point, I will. But I think it's been a success so far.
How could we not talk about the projector?
The projector. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been very functional. You can move it. We got magnets in the ceiling. So if Savannah wants to sleep and I want to watch a movie or play a video game up front, I can do that. If she wants to relax and watch a show in bed while I'm doing something in the other space, she can do that. If we have friends over, we can watch movies. And you get the big screen without the big clunky TV. So it's optimal for our setup for sure, and I'm happy with it.
I love it. It's definitely one of the most popular things that we've shown about the bus. Anytime we put it on Instagram or we've showed it on YouTube, people have a ton of questions about it. It's just really cool looking, and I think it's a very fun element to this bus. We installed Quiet Warmth Radiant Heat Film underneath our vinyl click and lock flooring, and the heat film runs to a thermostat which we installed right next to our bed. Even though we're in the desert, it is still winter time, and if you've ever lived in a van or a bus, a vehicle of any kind, you know that the floor is the coldest part.
Oh yeah.
By far.
Especially in the morning. Your feet are freezing. You don't want to get out of bed.
So we installed a thermostat right next to our bed for that reason, so we could just turn it on, heat up the floors, and then by the time we get up, our floor isn't cold anymore.
It's like the bougiest feature ever.
It's so fancy.
It works pretty good, and it's not on 24 hours, right? So it's not taking that much power. You run it for an hour in the morning just to take that edge off, and it's been nice. I really like it. And if it's a cold day outside and it's sunny, you could keep it on all day. Here's a few things that we either had to change or fix once we actually got on the road and saw how they worked. Once we got the undermount lights on the bus, we realized that they weren't working quite right after a little while. Something got damaged in some of them and certain colors wouldn't work. So we had to change them out for new ones. And so far they're holding up fine. I don't know if they were mounted wrong incorrectly or what happened, but they seem to be good now, and we'll see how they hold up.
Our steps, the actual steps into the house of our bus, have been a huge issue from the beginning. When we first bought the bus, we tore up the rubber flooring, and the entire step tub was completely rusted out.
So bad.
I didn't even know how it was still holding itself together. It was rusted so badly. So my dad made a new tub for us. He completely remade our steps. So it's brand new, and I decided to coat it with a truck bed liner. Mm-hmm. And that was great because it had a non-slip kind of additive to it. It was sort of rubbery, and so I thought it would coat the steps really well and protect them, and also we wouldn't slip on them when it was wet. Before we left New York, we got a really bad snow and ice storm, and we couldn't even open our bus doors one morning because there was so much ice that was just packed onto the step because our bottom step is completely outside of our bus. So Drew was trying to chisel the ice off of that bottom step so that we could open our door, and in doing that, he chipped some of the truck bed liner off of the step, and then over time it just got so much worse, and it started to peel, and then the metal underneath started to rust. So I knew that we needed another solution. We decided to try Slip Doctor's DuraGrip next, which is similar to the truck bed liner. It's anti-slip. It's epoxy based, so it should adhere to the metal. We had to sand everything down and scrape all the old truck bed liner off. Once we got it all down to the bare metal and applied the DuraGrip, it looks really great now, so I'm really hoping that it holds up. I don't want to redo these steps again.
The next thing we had to fix up was the couch cushions. Being that it's a couch and a booth and a bed and all that, there's different size cushions that have to be moved around. But we realized from actually sitting on them, they could slide off of the wood a bit. So I think somebody told you on TikTok or something?
Yeah, somebody on TikTok told me to put Velcro underneath the cushions, and that would help them stay in place.
Yeah, it just grabs them, and it's been working out great. It's a good little tip.
Thank you to that person on TikTok. There's something about cabinets in a camper that they just always get dinged up and get nicks in the paint. So I bought a little quart of our cabinet paint so that I could do touch-ups. Another thing in the kitchen is the caulk around our undermounted sink. We have purchased several different types of sealants for the top where the countertop meets the actual sink to just seal that area so that water doesn't get in there. So I'm on number 3. I bought finally a marine grade. It's rated for underwater use. The most intense one I could find. I bought it. And we put it onto the sink the other day. So far, it's held up really well, but we did go through a struggle to get here.
Yeah, well, hopefully it does hold up. We'll see. I guess I'll report that later. The last thing was mounting a curtain between the bed area and the rest of the house. Savannah often goes to bed earlier than I do. So if I want to watch a movie or play a video game or just have kitchen lights on, it's easy for me to pull that curtain, and then she doesn't really get disturbed by the extra light, and I can feel a little more relaxed to do whatever I need to do without bothering her.
It kind of makes the bed area like its own room when you pull the curtain.
Yeah.
Those are some things from our build that we ended up loving and other things that we had to do, redo, or change. Now we're going to give you a little progress report on our power and water systems because we have real world experience with both of these systems now. We got a lot of questions about both in the beginning and we just didn't know about a lot of the capacities and what we were going to draw and use because we hadn't lived in the bus yet. So now we have 2 months of figuring that out and both the systems, just testing them in everyday life.
Once again, you're talking about planning out the theory of how much power you're going to be using and able to generate, but until you've done it, it's hard to know. Particularly like the fridge and the freezer, those are things we kind of made to work for us. It's hard to know what's a 24-hour period of the fridge drawing power, because how often is that kicking on and off? The fridge being relatively constant draw, we converted a freezer to a fridge, so we had no idea what's that really look like throughout the day. And honestly, I still haven't done a very good test to see the exact numbers, but it doesn't run nearly as much as you would think. Being it's so well insulated, it kicks on time to time. Honestly, it's drawing such a small amount of power relative to our capacity. I don't even have to think about that. The freezer's a bit more. That's pretty much going to be pulling, still a low number. I think 40 watts is what it pulls. But it's going to run almost nonstop unless it's cooler out. So that's, it's a decent, it's probably 1,000 watts a day you have to consider. But you can use it intermittently. Like, you don't need to run it all the time. If there's nothing really in there, just shut it off until you're ready to freeze something again.
We've been turning it off if we grocery shop and we don't buy anything that needs to be frozen. So about half of our time that we've been on the road, the freezer has been off and hasn't even been running.
Yeah, and it's not that we'd have any issue with it running, because we did run it for maybe a week straight and it wasn't like, oh, our power is slowly depleting. We were able to replenish that every day easy with our panel array. The water heater is a really big power draw. I think it's 1700 watts while it's running, and that can go for 15, 20, 30 minutes depending on how cold the water is. So those sorts of things, until you're running them on a daily, weekly basis and seeing how much solar you're bringing in, it's hard to say. We had a pretty good idea, but now we know that 1400 watts of solar, 600 amp hours of lithium. We've built a beast of a system, and it's been able to handle all that without a beat. You're running an Instapot, Vitamix, Projector,
Hair dryer,
straightener, all that stuff. And being in the desert, we have sun. We have all the power we need every day and then some. Our batteries usually stop charging by noon. Maybe sometimes they have to go longer if we really used all that kind of power the day before. But generally, we are super excited about what we built, and we have more than enough. So we're talking mid-March right now, so we're only about 25% to the peak sun for the year. It's only going to go up from now till June 21st, then it'll slowly go down. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be pulling over 1,000 easy for a few hours a day.
That's a lot.
In the summer, and I mean, I think we'll probably get to about 1,200. I wonder if we'll ever really hit 14.
I don't know.
Just because panels generally are a little bit overrated on their capacity. But even being close, I mean, we're already at almost 1,000 watts, and the sun is not that high in the sky. So it's super exciting and really encouraging to know once we want to kick that AC on and that thing's pulling maybe 400 to 500 watts, we'll be able to run that all day when it's sunny out, and it'll still be feeding the batteries because we'll be making a surplus still. Another really cool thing is now that we have an Instapot, if we choose, we can cook off of free power basically. We don't have to run our propane stove, which though cheap, you're still paying for it eventually, right? So you can run the Instapot and you're cooking with power from the sun.
Basically, we have reconfirmed what we originally thought, that we almost never have to worry about having power when we're parked in the Southwest. There is sun every day, all day long. We don't have to worry so much about it being cloudy. So I'm interested to see how this changes when we get back east and we're dealing with a little bit more cloudy skies.
Yeah, given the capacity of our battery bank, we should have several days of autonomy even if there's no sun, but it is a little bit harder when you're in even like a forest or something where you don't get the sun coming in on your panels.
Our water system, we have 75 gallons of fresh water. That tank is underneath our bed. We also have 2 gray water tanks, one underneath our shower, strictly for our shower. And we have 1 6-gallon handheld tank that is just for our sink gray water. We also have an electric hot water heater. It has a 4-gallon tank. And we installed an APEC 3-stage water filter, which has been my favorite part of that whole thing.
Oh, man.
Being able to filter the water from our tank so that it's fresh, filtered drinking water. We never had that before. That feels like a huge luxury.
Yeah, really nice. Previously, we would carry a couple 6-gallon containers and fill those up with drinking water from a drinking water vending machine. But just being able to fill one big tank of water and then filter your drinking water in-house, it's been awesome. Having the expanded capacity, being able to just shower pretty much whenever you want, that's great. The only thing I think I might amend is the faucet on the sink. It's just a normal house one, right? So it's kind of blows through water pretty fast.
You can really just rip through all your water, and we did that a few times. We usually fill up once a week. We could go much longer, but there was one time that we ran out of water midweek, and we have 75 gallons of fresh water.
Yeah, it's horrible because we've been through this. We've been here before.
Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, and it was because we were being too liberal with the water we were using to wash dishes and that faucet.
Yeah, and we cook basically 3 meals a day almost every day, so we have to do a lot of dishes. So you definitely have to like pay attention to that part of it.
The shower head has been great though.
You know, the shower head's good. We really ended up loving the gray water tank setup being under the sink, and I knew we would because we had the experience of the previous van of always having to hook up a hose to dump your gray tank in like an RV dump. With this, you can dump it by hand. It's just a lot quicker and easier to deal with. We were finally able to put our undermounted propane tank to use and see how long it would last. Now, we put a big tank on this bus. It's 20 gallons, not to be confused with a 20-pound tank, which is a traditional barbecue tank. That's only 4.5 gallons. So it's about 4 times the size of that. So quite a bit. And finally, it ran out. It took a little over 2 months of using the heater a lot, oven, and the stove almost daily. So very exciting. Going forward, we'll probably use it a bit less in the summer because there won't be any heater running. Yeah, we only got to get propane like 4 or 5 times a year probably, which is awesome. All right, guys, that's our 2-month update. I hope it was helpful.
We have to go live a few more months in this bus so we can tell you about it. As always, like, subscribe, leave your comments below, and we'll see you next time.